can lead to even bigger ones tomorrow. Credit one thing for what's ahead.
And welcome to the Howard Eskin Show on this, what is a Saturday morning live, but you can watch this forever if that's what you want to do. Watch it forever. Couple of legends. I'm sorry I chuckled. A couple of legends coming up on the Howard Eskin Show. But let me tell you that the Howard Eskin Show is presented by Stillwell Financial Advisors. You have any wealth or money or assets or whatever you want to invest, Jeff Stillwell can help you do it and do it well. Good guy, regular guy, knows his stuff. And if you want to get a hold of Jeff, 732-343-0813, Stillwell Financial Advisors. All right, on the show today, obviously we're going to talk about quite a few things. As we always do, baseball, football. There's some serious stuff going on in football. And at the end of the show today, even I believe it's a touching moment. And our guests, as I said, two legends, the best friend of the Phanatic, Tom Burgoyne, and a close friend of both of them, and that would be the director of Fun and Games, John Brazer. But before we get to that, let me tell you about a great deal that's going on at Audi Westchester. And this is a really good deal. You can lease a new 2025 Audi A3 Quattro, only $439 a month, or a new 2025 Audi A5 Sportback for only $529 a month. Now, all you need is $2,500 down, plus taxes and registration fees, to lease the new Audi A3 or the Audi A5 Sportback for 36 months, 7,500 miles per year. Stop by Audi Westchester. That's where I get my vehicles, Audi Westchester, and see their all-new facility located 1421 Wilmington Pike. This special offer won't last long, so you got to check it out. And if you're looking for a fine vehicle, lease a new 2025 Audi A3 for $439 a month, or a new 2025 Audi A5 Sportback for only $529 a month. Check it out, AudiWestchester.com. That's AudiWestchester.com. And you want to take care of having some fun for the summer, you can do it by, if you want to build a pool. These guys, Piazza Property Pros, can build you a great pool. They're working on a few projects right now. You waited a little while to build your pool, but it's never too late, just so you don't miss out on next year. But because Piazza Property Pros has 25 years of experience, they specialize in turning a lot of things great on your property. Work is done by their own skilled people. They don't subcontract. Excavation, hardscaping, fencing, landscaping, pool maintenance. You can do it all. You can do it all. Piazza Property Pros, and they will give you exceptional results on time within your budget. Here's a number: 610-566-2608, 610-566-2608. You shouldn't wait any longer. If you've already waited, check them out, give them a call for a consultation, or check it out on piazzaoutdoor.com. And you want to save money with your cable? You can do that with cutting the cord with Jason. He offers an incredible service, saves you money. He'll come out to your house, cut your cable off, set you up with less expensive internet service, streaming services, which include all the local and national channels. You'll still get to see all the Philly pro games. And if you have a second home, no extra charge. They'll hook that up too as part of the same bill. Jason can set it up. Only one monthly TV bill for both houses. For more information and to save you lots of money, call Jason at 215-801-5858. That's 215-801-5858. All right. As I said, why do I chuckle when I say this? Two legends. Let's bring them in. And that would be Tom Burgoyne, who is the best friend of the Phanatic. Can't be closer than Tom Burgoyne. Can't be closer. And welcome, Tom. And the director of Fun and Games for the Phillies, who's best friends with both of them. And I don't know how the Phanatic and Tom can be best friends with this guy, but he's
Hey,
best
Howard,
friends.
before we start, we
John
want an
Brazier.
Audi, a pool, and internet service too. So
You want
that's our demand.
Okay, you got it. You got the outing, and then you got the pool. No problem. But again, then I got to give you swimming lessons so you don't drown. I don't want you to drown. All right. It's an interesting dynamic. The Fanatic and Bill Giles, and let's give Bill credit. I think Bill was the one that had the idea, and I don't know how many people, and people should remember Bill Giles. He was a showman for sports. Because he wanted to create more for fan interest, so he figured a mascot and the Fanatic could be the ticket, and he did that. It's amazing how the Fanatic developed. And Tom, as the Fanatic's best friend, can you explain, the dynamics of how this all evolved into what the Fanatic is today?
Yeah, Howard. I mean, and you mentioned Bill Giles. I mean, he was the guy, and even before the Fanatic showed up in 1978, and he had that idea for the Fanatic. It was 1971 when the Carpenter family brought Bill over from Houston, and he immediately started with the first ball deliveries, and making it being from Cincinnati. It's a national holiday in Cincinnati on opening day, so he really brought that excitement to Philadelphia, especially when the vet was first born, and then he had the wherewithal and the forward thinking to bring a mascot in. The Chicken was doing his thing in San Diego. He was with a radio station, so no team had a mascot like a performing mascot like that. So he called Jim Henson. They built a great costume. And then of course Dave Raymond was the ideal guy for it. He was a total knucklehead, chowderhead, whatever you want to call him, and it was perfect. And so, and then it's Philadelphia, Howard. So it's the home of the mummers. The home of people with crazy sense of humors, and love wackiness, love the party. And they saw the Fanatic as just one big party, and really, it just took off from there. It's just amazing now. To see so many, not only the fans wearing Fanatic gear the way they are today, but, the players and Harper and, the players now are wearing the hat for batting practice. And, it seems like the Fanatics everywhere now. It's pretty awesome.
And John Brazer, who is director of Fun and Games, even though he's not as much fun as Tom is. But, John, over the years, have you tried to develop more ideas? Do you get involved in helping the Fanatic develop more ideas?
I try to get involved, but Tom Burgoyne, the best friend of the Fanatic's like,
I shoot him down every time, Howard.
Every time.
If I did half the stuff that John wanted me to do, I would have been fired 25 years ago.
Well, I'll give you one example, Howard. I'll give you one example of an idea he did use of mine, and this is exactly why he doesn't use them anymore. Is when Darren Ruff came up, I said, Tom, for the introductions, the Fanatic should basically, when Dan Baker announces Darren Ruff, he should get on all fours and crawl over to the four-wheeler and lift your leg up and pretend you're peeing on the truck on the four-wheeler, Darren Ruff, right? So he did it. Crowd liked it, or at least I liked it. And then that was the end of it.
You know what, Tom, you mentioned the San Diego Chicken. And, if truth be told, and I always tell the truth, I loved the San Diego Chicken. And the difference was because he was so athletic, because of the costume allowed him to be athletic. He was different, and he got a little over the top sometimes. Maybe that was the end of. I'll tell you a story. I had the Chicken on a sportscast of mine on Channel 3 because he was in town one time. But because he was so, he did so many things that were different because of the costume. How difficult is that for the Fanatic to be that kind of way? And did the Fanatic, do you think, try to be a little bit of the Chicken, but you can't be the Chicken because of the costume he had?
Yeah, certainly the act, I think to have a mascot who is, entertaining between innings and in the crowd and not just Philadelphia Phil and Philadelphia Phillies. Everybody remembers them. They would just
Yeah.
stand there at home plate. And so a different type of mascot altogether. So the chicken, because the costume was built a certain way, could do certain things. No doubt, Howard, you're right on it. And, diving into third base, a la, slow motion. He had a great routine. He'd slide into third like Pete Rose head first. And if, so there are some limitations there, but on the other side, the Phanatic has some attributes that I think lend itself to, more of a comedic thing too, between the belly and the tongue and just the way that it's built, it just, it enables, the Phanatic to move in a certain way that, I think people think is funny.
Do you remember, as the best friend of the Phanatic, do you remember the craziest things? And John, you can jump in on this too.
Yeah.
The craziest things that the Phanatic may have done over the years.
Well, what do you think, John? Because that's an interesting question I get asked.
I'll jump in with one quick story, and this is Howard. As you know, we do a podcast together, and
yes,
a lot of these stories come. Well, you've been a guest on our podcast, so we have a lot of fun stories, and mostly obviously around the Phanatic. So one of the stories. And Tom likes to have, or the Phanatic likes to have different guests. So he had SpongeBob. This is back at the vet. So SpongeBob shows up. Well, the costume didn't have, you couldn't put your real arms in the arm. The arms are just flapping. So I guess the real arms are inside the body of the suit. So the SpongeBob asked the Phanatic, hey, what are we doing in the fifth inning? What are we going to dance to? And Phanatic said, well, I can't really say. We'll just, I'm going to surprise you. It'll be fun. So they go out there and they do YMCA. Well, SpongeBob can't lift his arms because he has no arms.
There's a lot of this going on.
Looking at him like, what are you doing? So the routine's great. It's going a little long. And next thing you know, you realize he's got to get off the field or else, the umpire's going to get upset. So SpongeBob jumps on, but instead of jumping on where he's facing the same direction as the Phanatic, he goes back to back. So he's looking at, the field as they're going off. And the Phanatic's driving really fast because he's got to get off, not get the umpires mad. He hits the ramp of right field and launches SpongeBob literally like 10 feet in the air. And Phanatic didn't know that SpongeBob got launched, and he keeps going. And the groundsman had to go out and scrape up SpongeBob. And Bobby Abreu was laughing so hard they had to delay the start of the inning because he was laughing so hard.
All right. So now, when the Phanatic gets on the Phanatic, what do you call it?
Four-wheeler, yeah, the ATV.
Okay, the Phanatic ATV. Has the Phanatic ever crashed?
Yes, but you know what? Twice actually that I can remember. Once was it wasn't even a Phillies game; it was a soccer game at the vet, and for whatever reason, the fence kind of snuck up on me, and I went right into the fence for whatever reason. I wasn't paying attention. They had changed the configuration, and they had the Phanatic, at the soccer game. The other time was coming up that ramp, taking the sharp right hand turn on the service level, and it flipped over, and only one guy saw it. Unfortunately, I wish I had that on tape.
You know what? Now the people, obviously, you have to be careful. The Phanatic has to be careful of the people when he's driving around on the concourse. That's got to be a little. You can't be speeding around.
Phanatic has a very loud horn, Howard. So everybody kind of parts the Red Sea for him.
And do you get any women to scream when you honk the horn because
that's
you're scared
always
of
the
living
goal.
daylight?
That's always the goal. That's surprising.
Howard, one of my favorite Phanatic routines, and it's every time Bruce Bochy comes into the whoever he's managing. Inevitably, a guy on the team will go up to the Phanatic ahead of the game and say, "Hey, make sure you imitate coach, right in front of the dugout while he's standing on the top step." So the Phanatic will get out on the field right in front of Bruce Bochy, and Bruce Bochy has a big head, as you know, has a huge head, right? I don't even know what his hat size is. And so then the Phanatic gets up right behind him. All the teammates are behind Bruce Bochy because they know it's happening, and he just starts like pretending like the head's making him go this way, making him go that way, and then he eventually falls over because the head's too big, and the teammates behind Bruce Bochy are dying, absolutely dying.
Bruce smiles too. And when he retired, the Phillies did a nice thing. He came out to exchange lineup cards, and they made the announcement that he was retiring, and the Phanatic presented him with his own fat head on a stick.
You know, I want to get serious, and you guys don't even have to comment on this. Okay, Bruce Bochy had a big head. Do you know Barry Bonds' head size grew 2 sizes during his career?
Oh,
And
wow.
I know that from the hat company, from the helmet company.
I heard that happened to Mr. Met too. I heard.
Yeah, Mr. Met was a mascot.
I think that was Mrs. Met.
Yeah, you know, Mr. Met was a kind of a folk hero for the Mets, but I don't remember Mr. Met doing a lot of crazy things. Do you guys remember Mr. Met? He just kind of stood around and he was Mr. Met, but it was in those years, I guess he was big in the 80s when the Mets won a World Series in 86, and then they went to the World Series again back in 88. So I don't remember Mr. Met doing a whole lot of things.
Yeah, it's a different type of character altogether, Howard. You know, he doesn't really have the ability. You know, it's pretty funny when you think of the costume and people, you know, so why is the Fanatic, popular or whatever? Or he can get away with the things, or he's, people like watching him. Well, it's kind of it's my shoulder, the head's up here, whereas Mr. Met's got that big, round head, and it's hard to give it life, and it's hard, and it limits his movement. It's so they really kind of use him more as, just as a photo op, basically, before the game. I know they do their thing with the trumpets when the pitcher comes in, but it's kind of it's a whole different thing up there.
All right, so sometimes it's hot in the summer. Baseball's a summer game. I'll call it a uniform for the Fanatic, costume uniform, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Can get a little hot. How do you help your best friend, the Fanatic, try to stay cool?
Well, the Fanatic's got it easy because, he's from the Galapagos Islands, so he's used to the humid, dry air, but or the humid, hot weather. But, but I'm running after him and I'm working up just as much of a sweat as he is. But the key is, taking breaks, kind of in and out. Fanatic goes back to his dressing room and drinks his water. He's got his fan, and then he's back out there because it'd be hard for the Fanatic to keep up that kind of energy level for 9 innings straight.
Okay, so we have some video of the Fanatic dancing on the top of the dugout. I want to. There was a couple of questions I have here. Let's play the video first of the dancing. And the Fanatic gets on the dugout, grabs a fan. Obviously, the Fanatic's got to get the fan to not be afraid to go up there with such an ugly looking person or whatever. Where did the dancing? 2 questions. Where did the dancing on the dugout come from? And how tough is it to get people? And this woman seems to be into it. Obviously, she probably had a couple of beers, maybe more than a couple. How tough is it to get people to do that? And where did that come from?
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting, Howard. It's one of the best parts of the night for me. I got to tell you, I just love it. And it really started, when the Fanatic first came to being in the 70s. It actually started with the Take Me Out to the Ball Game. The Fanatic be on the dugout leading everybody out, would take me out to the ball game. They'd play one verse, and then after Take Me Out to the Ball Game, they'd play a song, and the Fanatic would dance. And so that's kind of where it started. And then it's every once in a while, maybe doing some routines and some skits up on the dugout. And now really it's just evolved into exactly what you just saw there. The Fanatic, I always say it's kind of his Bruce Springsteen moment, Dancing in the Dark video. He pulls up Courtney Cox. So the Fanatic gets to be a rock star, that in the 7th inning.
Okay,
and Howard, it's great.
Ahead,
you mentioned people who don't want it, but part of the fun is if somebody doesn't really want to dance, and then the Fanatic gets everybody to come on, let's cheer, let's get this guy out of his seat. That's fun. It's fun when you have somebody who can really dance. It's fun when you get somebody who doesn't know how to dance, and we can have some fun with that. But the fact is, Howard, he's the Fanatic through good and bad, no matter what the score is, has been dancing for 47 years on top of that dugout.
And Howard, I can say Tom Burgoyne has the best job because he's always with the Fanatic, obviously. The Fanatic had Billy Joel sing into his snout. He's basically done a duet with Elton John. Yeah. He's done fins with Jimmy Buffett. He's jumped up on stage at the Keswick with Little Feat. He's jumped up on the stage with the Dropkick Murphys.
Gotten thrown out of a Bruce Springsteen concert, did the Phanatic.
Got thrown out. Mount Joy, jumped up with Mount Joy and did Dancing Queen. So
he's a rock star, Howard. You know that.
You know, when the Phanatic does these things, there's a lot of things that the Phanatic does. One of them is antagonize umpires. We'll get to the players shortly, but the umpires, they probably had to agree to it, right? You know, how tough was it to get the umpires? You know, because some of these guys, some of them are pretty good guys, but some of these guys are kind of like really formal and no, we can't do that. How tough was it to get the umpires to kind of be a part of it? And it's not always the umpires that you're dancing with, it's somebody dressed as an umpire. But how tough is it? But there's times when you go up to an umpire. How tough was that?
Howard, it's a great question. And it's one of the things I think why the Phanatic gained his popularity right from the start. The Phanatic had no problem going up to players and messing around with players before the game and umpires and coaches. That was taboo. It never happened. You just never saw it. And so I love seeing some of those old clips of the Phanatic back with the, you know, Bruce Frummings. And I know Eric Gregg, you know, I had a lot of interaction with Eric. And but it was like a wild, wild west where, you know, you get into wrestling matches, the Phanatic with some of these umpires back in the day because they loved the Phanatic too. And the Phanatic was the only one out there. Then, you know, all the other teams started having mascots. I think the umpires as a whole backed off. They said, we can't be messing with, you know, all these mascots because you don't know who's going to be in costume. You know who the Phanatic is. He's legit. Don't know about these other guys. So they put it in, Howard, like some of these young guys coming up through the minor leagues, they're not allowed to mess around with the Phanatic unless the mascot sets it up with them ahead of time. And even then, they're usually kind of cool to it, which is part of the fun, too.
But you'd have to set it up with them at the times. I mean, the Fanatic's office.
Back in the day, Howard, the Phanatic would not set it up. And I love when the Phanatic would ambush a mascot or an umpire out there and see what kind of reaction you get. Sometimes they get, you know, they're not real happy, and that's part of the fun and part of the humor.
Well, the Phanatic's office is kind of right across the hall from the umpire's locker room, so you would think, but the Phanatic didn't want to set it up. Is that what you're telling me?
Correct. Yeah, it's no fun setting it up. Now, Eric Gregg is a whole different animal. Eric would knock on my door and say, "All right, what are we dancing to tonight? Me and Phanatic, pick a song. You know, what song are we going to dance to?" And he would give me, you know, Jackson 5. Let's play some Jackson 5 tonight, Phanatic. And so he was just one of a kind, Eric. But then you mentioned plants, Howard. I'll never forget it. After all those years of the Phanatic messing with the actual umpires, I remember it totally distinctly. It was Ricky Martin was big that year, so whatever his song was, Living La Vida Loca. And we had the great Matt Mailer dress up as an umpire, and underneath his umpire outfit he had this flamboyant yellow shirt, and he had a rose that he took out and he put it between his teeth. But when he took off his umpire costume and the Phanatic and the umpire tangoed out into, you know, right into left field, the place went crazy, including David Montgomery. And Matt worked for us for 27 years. But David said, I didn't see the switch, and you blew my mind with that. And now it's true. The Phanatic does kind of plant, you know, an umpire every once in a while, and it's a lot of fun.
John, did you have to reprimand the Phanatic every once in a while with certain things that he did?
No, I'm actually the one encouraging him.
Yeah, I'm the one man, Howard. Come on.
Who did you come up with a player or an umpire? You know, I don't know how many umpires that you got to know, John, because you passed by there, but I don't know if Eric Gregg was easy. I mean, Eric Gregg would do anything, and you couldn't tell who the Phanatic was, Eric Gregg or the Phanatic, when they were dancing. And may he rest in peace. I got along with Eric Gregg.
I think Joe West was fun to mess with.
Oh, Joe West had to be really good. He was a tough guy, and he was a pain in the ass. But you know, that's interesting. You brought up Joe West because he's a singer now and all this other nonsense. And I got to be friendly with Joe West. That's actually interesting. I might have to have Joe West on the podcast.
You should.
And tell me about his moments, because he had, you know, just as an aside, I think one of the batters asked him to move when he was on second base, and he wouldn't do it. he wouldn't move out of position. Joe was a hard ass. But how tough was it to get Joe West to do that stuff?
He was another guy, again, I really liked surprising, these guys. So I do remember he came in, you're right about, he was a singer, Howard, and he had his first CD, and it was all this country music, and he was coach at third base. We played one of the songs, and the Phanatic came out. Phanatic might have had a big cowboy hat and just kind of just surprised him with it. And he's hearing his song being played in front of 40,000 people at the vet. And so he liked it. He had one of those egos that he didn't mind being the butt of the joke if it got him in the spotlight.
Hey, Howard, Tom and I both did the music at the ballpark. We were based as a DJ before. Now they've got real DJs down there, but we were did all that. And so when they did the announcing the umpires, I remember when I did it, I was 94, 95, 96. They'd say, and behind home plate, Joe West. And I'd put on the worst song of his CD, and I'd crank it up really loud, and he'd look up there and just shake his head.
Yeah.
He was, Joe is a hard ass, but he's not really deep down. I don't think he's really a hard ass. I think he's really a good guy.
No
and
doubt.
Talking to him multiple times.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think he's a really good guy. I mean, some of the umpires really are regular people, although when people look at them on the field, oh, they're tough guys. And, the umpire or the manager yells at him. So then the umpire yells back, and it's just, they seem, they make a mistake, and they've known they make a mistake, but they can't admit to it. But some guys are really pretty good guys, aren't they? Have you found that to be the case when you've done the things with umpires?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Howard, it's funny you said, yeah, they're regular guys, and they are, I think they have to have a certain persona. It's interesting to me because the Phanatic, especially, there was a time in the mid 90s where and late 90s where he was going to minor league ballparks, all around the country, about 30 a year, and don't do quite as many of those as we used to. But it would be funny. I would actually get to know and meet some of these minor league umpires, and then they would graduate to the big leagues. So it's kind of neat to see them go through that same grind that players go through in the minor leagues.
Okay, so what players are receptive to the Phanatic, and what players are not receptive to the Phanatic?
Well, it goes back to the early days of the Phanatic, and the Phanatic's been doing this ever since. And that is, he really directs his attention to the visiting team. He kind of lets the Phillies get ready for the game. But the whole idea of that this team has come to Philadelphia, and we want every kind of advantage we can get. So he's right there in front of that dugout goofing around. And, certain players will look right through. I always bring up Tony Gwynn as a great example. Like Tony Gwynn, the Phanatic could try to get into it with him, maybe make fun of his weight a little bit or how small kind of this small guy. And he would just look right through the Phanatic. Just, like he is so focused, kind of like Chase Utley, just focused for the game. He's not, looking at anything else.
Okay.
But,
I want to know, you brought up Bruce Springsteen, and I'm sorry to interrupt. You brought up, the Phanatic got thrown out of the Springsteen concert. Somebody sent me a message. Why did the Phanatic get thrown out of the Springsteen
You didn't want to just let that hang out there, Howard? You had to by the way,
deserved, Howard.
What's that, John?
It's well deserved.
Yeah. It was 1999. Bruce had canceled one of his shows because of weather at the Wells Fargo Center. So he was going to do a one night only at the Spectrum in September. And it turns out it was a home game for the Phillies. So the Phillies are playing at the Vet, Bruce at the Spectrum. If you remember Lee Tobin had called like 2 days ago. Yeah. We were talking at the press club after one of the games saying, hey, love to go, I'd love to go over and, with the Phanatic, and we, bust in on and meet Bruce. And so she called, the people over there said, no, that's okay. We don't need the Phanatic. Well, the Phanatic kind of went over anyway. Right after his fifth inning routine at the Vet, up the ramp, across the street on the ATV to the Spectrum. Of course, the guards let him right in. Within 2 minutes, the Phanatic's in the front row, banging his head on the stage, going crazy. And Bruce is in the middle of a song called Murder Incorporated. And so it was a little bit of a serious time at a concert. Bruce turns his back. And as you know, Dan Stevenson, Howard,
yes.
he knew a lot of guys on the crew. So we heard the story the next day. When Bruce turned his back during one of the guitar solos, he was yelling to anybody he could, who would listen to him, get him the bleep out of here. And so within 2 minutes, somebody comes down right in the Phanatic's face, you got to get out of here. We don't want you here. And so they escorted the Phanatic right out the door. Of course, everybody's high-fiving the Phanatic, on his way out.
Yeah, which, it was the moment. It wasn't that he didn't want you there.
Right.
It was the moment. It was the wrong song to be. See, the Phanatic's got to be a little sharper than that. I thought,
Howard, it was in the middle of a Phillies game.
He's a Mets fan, though.
No, it was in the middle of a Phillies game. The Phanatic had to be back on the dugout in the 7th inning. So I didn't. Hey, Murder Incorporated. If I could have hung out for glory days or dancing in the dark, he would have brought the Phanatic right up.
The Phanatic ever taken a cognitive test?
Maybe he's been banging his head too many times. I think.
Hey, Howard, the Phanatic did beat Jose Batista in a push-up contest.
Really?
Right, Tom?
Yeah. That's a big thing online. Yeah, that's a big internet.
Wow. I guess that's not. Well, maybe I'm not surprised. All right, so we get to the players, and we get to the manager.
Yeah.
And Tommy Lasorda was probably the moment. And I got a lot of comments here. That was the moment that everybody remembers. I think I have a little video of the Phanatic with Tommy Lasorda. Let's go with it, if we can. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk. Tom, why don't you talk about it while we're trying to get it up?
It is a famous. It's really a video that's been seen by a lot of people, Howard, and it's funny. Dave, the great Dave Raymond. He tells a story. The Lasorda never really liked the Phanatic, going all the way back to like Japan. Apparently, the Phanatic signed a bunch of baseballs and in the wrong spot, and Lasorda wasn't happy. That's Dave's story. But this was 1988, what you're saying here. And by that time, the Phanatic had been using this dummy, Steve
blow-up doll or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was a dummy. Steve Sachs would steal the extra Lasorda jersey and give it to the Phanatic, and he just blew up this game. Yeah, he had enough. And if you watch how he gets cracked across, wham, and the Phanatic's head almost came off. As a matter of fact, if you slow that tape down, and then he gets him good with the belly. Oh, and there goes a baseball too.
There goes the baseball. Okay, so now, John, what do you remember about that incident?
Well, the Steve Sachs part's the best, because Steve Sachs would, according to Dave Raymond, would pop his head into the locker room and say, "Here you go, and don't tell anybody I did this." And he'd throw the spare jersey, and Lasorda knew that somebody was the sneak. Somebody was, getting his backup jersey and giving it to the Phanatic. So Lasorda would lecture the whole team, say, "Listen, man, before we get to Philadelphia, if anybody takes my backup jersey, then I'm going to find out who that is," and blah, 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 blah. Well, again, Steve Sachs did it all the time, and all the players knew it was Steve Sachs.
Steve Sachs was a second baseman for the Dodgers, right?
Yep.
And Howard, the funny part is, when Dave, and so I was there. So that was 1988, that clip. I started in 89, worked with Dave for 5 years. And for 5 years, it was bedlam every time the Dodgers would come. And Dave would always say, we don't need this to keep going on. But the fans, and even Lasorda himself. John, you have a funny story of driving. Listen to John's driving Lasorda to some radio station.
We were honoring Tommy Lasorda for something. I guess Tommy Lasorda night. This is after he retired. And I was taking him around to radio stations. He's in my car. I'm getting to know him after, spending a couple hours with him. So I knew I was going to ask the question, but I kind of opened up the can of worms. I said, hey, Tommy, you don't really hate the Phanatic, right? That's kind of an act. And he says, well, John, let me just tell you, I think the Phanatic is fun. And I know a lot of kids like him, but all of a sudden, blah, blah, blah. But I don't like when he does this. And next thing you know, he's screaming, he's turning red. And I can't turn the spigot off. He's literally screaming at me. And I'm like, all right, how do I tamp this down a little bit? So I saw then that he really did really not like the Phanatic.
You got to think of a joke. It happened with myself and Ed Snyder one time. I'm not going to go through the language that was used, although you can do it on a podcast. He started yelling at me because I made fun of hockey. Said you put a clown's mouth in the goal and, you get 2 points instead of 1. And he saw me after the game. He was pissed. So he started yelling at me. And then I made a joke and he stopped, and he says, okay. Later in the locker room, he says, well, you got me. And then he started laughing. But it's sometimes it's hard in that moment, especially when a guy like Tom Lasorda might be yelling at you. Tom he was a fun guy. I mean, I was friends with, may he rest in peace, friends with Tom, and he was a fun guy, but he was serious about the game. I think. How do I explain it? You guys know what I'm trying to say.
Know what, Howard, right? And the way he would describe it, because I think he saw himself as a fun guy. The Phanatic would look at him as a fun killer, but he would say, I've worn 2 uniforms in my life, the Army and the Dodger blue, and I hate to see it desecrated in any way. And so he just thought this idea of putting a dummy, and he would say the Phanatic would run over the with the 4-wheeler. He wouldn't. He would throw it up in the air and flop it around a little bit. But so that was the part he says he didn't really care for. And I can attest, after Dave left, I was doing kind of skits based around Lasorda with the dummy. And remember Nomo, his first game, Nomo comes to pitch in LA, and we lit him up. It was that was the year the Greg Dobbs was it Greg Dobbs the game where he had this hit for the cycle, but we lit him up, and Phillies were winning like 8-0 fifth inning, and the Phanatic came out with that dummy, and I'm telling you, every curse word, throwing balls at the Phanatic, world class cursor, Tommy Lasorda.
But I tell you what, I was lucky enough to be around him, like up in the press box and Dodger Stadium or back at our place. And there was no better storyteller in the game of baseball than Tom Lasorda. Yep. Even if they were the same stories, you literally couldn't wait to hear another story.
Okay, so some of the guys, and Lasorda got on the ATV or whatever you call it, and he got on it, but some players drove it away. I guess you got to be careful. The player could get hurt on something like that.
Yeah, do you remember Ed Ott? Not Mel Ott, Ed Ott.
Ed Ott. Yeah.
Ed Ott. He wound up being a coach, third base coach, I think, for Pittsburgh. But
he played for Pittsburgh too.
He stole the 4-wheeler, took it around the field, all the way around, comes back to the visiting dugout. This is at the vet, hits the brakes, and goes right over the handlebars. He flipped right over the handlebars right before the game. So the next game, we went out and we bought one of those big wheels, for him, those plastic little big tricycles. We got him a crash helmet, and Dan Baker, we made the big announcement. We presented Ed Ott. We showed the video on Fanavision, and then we presented him with the big wheel and the crash
all right.
helmet.
So now when you go in the concourse, we have some video. When you go in the concourse, I don't know who starts dancing with the fans, the Phanatic, and it's always fun when you get a woman. We have some video of the Phanatic. I'm pretty sure dancing with the women. Who starts this? The women start it, or the Phanatic starts it?
I don't know. Hey, the Phanatic, wasn't he just voted the second most sexiest mascot in baseball? So
yeah, I got to ask a question about that too.
He's got that appeal.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, he's not. The Phanatic doesn't wear pants either, so there's an allure there.
Okay. All right. So now here you brought this up. The second most sexiest mascot in baseball. Now, do you know? I'm going to show people who voted number 1, and I'm going to ask you to address this. Baxter, the mascot for the Baxter is his name. The mascot for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and hopefully we can get this up here. Baxter, why is Baxter the sexiest mascot in baseball?
I have no idea. He's got muscles. I mean, muscles aren't sexy. A big fat belly is sexy. Everybody knows that.
He looks like he just got his wisdom teeth out too.
looks like he's chewing gum in both of his cheeks.
The Phanatic wants a recount.
Okay, so the Phanatic's the second most sexiest. How do you overtake Baxter? I mean, what do you have to do? Do you have to drop your no pants or what?
Well, he's got to streak more.
Maybe he should streak more. The Phanatic hasn't been streaking quite as much across the field.
Oh,
so
yeah.
maybe
that's right. You know what? That's a good point. That is really a good point, but I don't know. People could vote on Baxter.
Howard,
It's
that
just
is one of the best skits that the Fanatic does. It usually does at least once a year. But Dan Baker will say, "Ladies and gentlemen, there'll be no streaking on the field. That is disallowed. Blah 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 blah." And then all of a sudden the song comes on. Look at him! Look at him! Look at him! Look.
you know what? Who's sexier, the Fanatic or Baxter? We'll find out from the
Call in
people in
now.
Philadelphia are going to say the Fanatic. I'm telling you, it has been fun for years. It has evolved. It's never gone away. There was, there's different things. The Fanatic had to change the look for a little while until that all got straightened out. But the Fanatic's the Fanatic. You can't ever change the Fanatic. The belly thing is part of, I guess, being sexy. As long as something else doesn't come out, it's fine. It's fine. It's just, I'll say this. How much fun does the Fanatic have making appearances and doing things outside of the ballpark?
Yeah, that's where I got my start, Howard. It's so much with the Fanatic, and maybe that's what makes it so cool. It's so authentic and organic the way it all happened. It started in '78. The Phillies didn't know it was going to be so big, and next thing you know, they had to bring in a kind of a second friend, and they had a guy before me, and then I came in, but really just doing appearances, out and about, cutting ribbons, weddings, bar mitzvahs, business, corporate meetings, fairs, of course, schools. We have a whole school program. They're the most fun. I mean, to me, the Fanatic really belongs in, doing those school assemblies that we do, going to also senior centers and nursing homes. They're some of our greatest fans. They've been around with the Phillies for, 70 and 80 years. So, there's nothing like it, Howard. One day I'll sit back and kind of look back and look at this run and just
Right.
It's amazing the number of people the Fanatic touches, on a daily basis. Between the community events, between what we do at the ballpark, it's pretty awesome.
And it's scary to kids. I remember the Fanatic came over to my house one time when my oldest son, and you guys know who he is, for his birthday party. And the Fanatic scared the living daylights.
Howard, how old was he?
He was probably like maybe 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah. That's when the kids are really young.
And you have to realize too, the Fanatic smells like a petting zoo, so it's that's part of the scare tactics.
Well, the thing is, the Fanatic is so big when you see him next to kids. He's really big.
My own kids were scared. It's that 2 and 3, 4. Right, 2 and 3 years old. That's where they're realizing, oh, this isn't just this little doll I'm holding. This is this big, huge, smelly thing coming at me. Yeah, and I will say, Howard, it's funny. Mentioned birthday. Like we can't even do birthday parties anymore because we get so many requests for so many other things that it's so crazy the amount of requests we get. But
I was lucky because I was friendly with the Fanatic. So
you had an in.
I had an in. But all right, tell everybody, you two nitwits, I mean geniuses, I mean legends, do a podcast together. Tell people where and when they can see it.
Yep, it is Backstage with Burgoyne and Brazer. So we record every 2 weeks, and we've been doing this since 2018. So I guess we were a little bit ahead of the curve, and we've got Charlie Manuel, we've got yourself, Howard. We've got Chase Utley. We've had Ryan Howard, Jamie Moyer. I mean, Jeff Francoeur. We try to get some of whoever's coming in, that's from another team. Possibly, we've had Dale Murphy. We've had Rick Wise. We've had Jim Tomey. I think we've had a lot of different fun people that they don't really have to have a Philadelphia connection. It's just we want big personalities and people that have good stories. And we go outside of, we've had, some football players on. We've had Joe Watson on. We've had Tom McGinnis, Bernie Perrant. We actually interviewed Bernie on his deck in Avalon, and we interviewed Jay Wright inside the field house. which was pretty cool. So I know we're going to get Jason Kelsey at some point, probably do that down at the shore. So usually it lands on Wednesday, every other Wednesday. So yeah, check it out. Backstage, we're going to Brazer, Under the Phillies, or you can get it Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah, Howard. And one of the great things about it really is John and I both grew up here. We both, when we were growing up, were just the ultimate, when we were kids, the ultimate Phillies sports fans, all four teams, and just loved it. And so to be able to interview some of our heroes, certainly that group, even for me, journalists and writers, I wanted to be a sports writer. So, just having, those guys on and yourself and, the WIP gang, and, it's just been such a cool thing for us. And we try not to make it too serious and, try to just tell some funny stories.
Podcasts are the media of now and the future. It's kind of sad because radio obviously got me into television. It got me where I am, but it's nobody, or I shouldn't say nobody, very few people listen to radio anymore. They focus in on podcasts, and you guys, you're right. You were ahead of the curve by starting in 2018. But I also got to say, I cannot believe Chase Utley, as serious as he was fun on a podcast.
I tell you what, Chase was great.
We fed him tequila, really, Howard.
Yeah, we plied him with tequila.
Wait a minute. It's after he was a player.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So it was better.
But Howard, I think the cool thing about podcasts, as you well know, is that, when you do a quick interview, when you interviewed guys on radio, it was like pretty much 10-minute interview, yep. And you kind of have your thing that you're going to say. With the long form interviews, you kind of we find things out that we didn't know. Like Tom and I both have known Milt Thompson for years, right? And in the interview, he was talking to us about how when he was a kid, he loved Jackie Robinson, worshipped Jackie Robinson, and he wanted to play second base, but he was left-handed. And his dad said, "You're going to have to change positions." Well, most normal people would, go to the outfield or play third base, or maybe not third base, but go to another position. And he learned how to throw right-handed when he was 7 years old, 8 years old. And in the majors, he was only right-handed, but he's really left-handed. So it's almost like Billy Wagner. Now, Billy Wagner did that because he broke his arm.
Right.
But Milt did it on his own volition, just did it on his own choice, so he could play second base to emulate Jackie Robinson, which is unbelievable. Then the whole interview kind of went towards that, and we were talking about how when he was a hitting coach, he could throw right-handed and left-handed at batting practice.
Well, that's when you think about all these things, it's amazing. But it was fun. It's kind of interesting because when you do these things, you're right about the 10-minute interviews on radio. I didn't know that I would be a go this long with you guys. But every time you say something, there's something else that comes up, which on radio, you can't really get into because you're locked into a time. Here, you can just have fun with guys. And
right.
Knowing, both you guys is a big part of it too. And the people that I have on, I know fairly well. And it's really and you can talk about stories, and you talk about things like Larry Bow. We talked about stories. He yelled at me in the locker room one time because he didn't like what I said. So 30 seconds later, we're laughing. But these are the kind of things you can talk about these things in a long form, and it really is good. Listen, I thank both you guys. Keep up the good work. Legend, genius, nitwit, whatever you may be. But hey, thanks to both you guys.
Thank you, Howard. Appreciate our friendship.
Yeah. Yes.
Thanks, Howard.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate the friendship of both you guys. Thanks. And have a great day and a better day tomorrow. And don't scare anybody.
We'll try not to. See you, Howard.
See you guys
later.
Right,
see you, Howard.
Take care. That's fun. It's just all the stories. Everybody knows the Phanatic. These things wouldn't happen. These things wouldn't happen on this fine show without Stillwell Financial Advisors. And thanks to Jeff Stillwell and Stillwell Financial Advisors for being the presenter of the Howard Eskin Show. If you have any things that you would like to invest, things, obviously wealth, Jeff Stillwell's the guy, 732-343-0813. Also, a great deal going on There's some other things I want to talk about. A serious thing and really a touching moment, which I'm going to play for you at the end of the show. It's just it's touching because the video is so great. But let me tell you about Audi Westchester and great deals. When I say great, I mean great deals going on now. 2025 Audi A3 Quattro, only $439 a month. That's only $439 a month. That's a great deal. Or the new 2025 Audi A5 Sportback for only $529 a month. All you need is $2,500 down plus taxes and registration fees to lease the new 2025 A3 or the Audi A5 Sportback, 36 months, 7,500 miles per year. Stop by Audi Westchester. Give them a call. Check it out if you like. And then you can stop by, see their all new facility. Great people there. A lot of fun. Grab a cup of coffee, some snacks. 1421 Wilmington Pike. Don't wait because this is not going to last long. A new 2025 Audi A3 for only $439 a month, or a new 2025 Audi A5 Sportback for only $529 a month. Check out AudiWestchester.com. That's AudiWestchester.com. Also, you want to take care. I don't know if it's too late to build a pool because you're not going to get full use out of it, but you ought to think about it. But if you need maintenance on your pool, if you still want to build a pool, Piazza Property Pros can help you out. They will help you out with 25 years of experience. Know that they will be the best at what they do because the people they use are their people. They don't subcontract. The workmanship is all theirs, whether it's excavation, landscaping, fencing, whatever it is. Pool maintenance and landscaping are things that I get done by Piazza Property Pros. Give them a call. They'll talk to you about things you can do within your budget. 610-566-2608, 610-566-2608, or on the internet, piazzaoutdoor.com. Or you want to save money with your cable? Jason's the guy. Cut the cord with Jason. Incredible service that will save you lots of money. Come out to your house, cut the cable off, set up less expensive internet service, streaming services. Now it'll include all the national channels. You'll get all your Philly pro games. And if you have a second home, that's all part of the same bill. Jason can set it up for both houses. For more information and save you lots of money, call Jason 215-801-5858, 215-801-5858. All right, a couple of items which are really, I guess, well, first of all, let me announce who won our Chickies and Pete's gift certificate from the last show. And he answered the question properly. That was Walt Grisky. Usually I have a question from our guests. I'll ask the question. You submit it to my website at howardeskin.com, and you could be a winner. We'll select at random the people with the right answers, somebody from the people with the right answers. Charles McGlinchey. We learned things on this podcast. He learned about Milt Thompson and about Billy Wagner. That's kind of interesting that that came up with the friend of the Phanatic and the friend of the friend of the Phanatic. All right, what's serious? Antonio Brown. I only met him once. It was during the week of a Super Bowl. I think it was in Miami. It didn't look like he had all his faculties, and he's driving real fast, and he's driving a real expensive car. And I met him outside a restaurant. He is a strange, as we both know, goofy guy, but now he's being wanted for attempted murder or assault, one of the two. It's just, it's really serious, but he is a different kind of guy. Golf, it's just, golf's going on now too. I don't know how many people get into the golf when you don't have a name at the, when you watch golf and you see Scotty Scheffler, it's some really good stuff, but he's not among the leaderboard in the US Open right now. But I miss, Tiger Woods. Enough was enough, but people miss Tiger Woods. They miss Phil Mickelson. Rory McIlroy, now that he's not playing well, he's a good guy, but he's not talkative now. He won't talk to the media because he's not playing well. Those things, golfers were usually the best. That was just my point of view. I have a question about the NBA, and we'll deal with it at another time. Does anybody, there's somebody, but how many people are so disinterested in the NBA finals? Two really good teams, but the NBA is not a good product anymore. And the commissioner, who is, kind of weak, not kind of weak. He is weak as a commissioner. He's certainly not David Stern. He makes excuses for the lack of viewership for the NBA finals. I mean, it's just absolutely brutal. There's one fact that I learned within the last 24 hours, and I can't believe it. But who knows? It's a fact that maybe nobody cares about that you're going to learn on this show. Delco, that's Delaware County, Delco is now recognized as the official birthplace of the hoagie. In Norristown, I think they still call them Zeps, but it's a hoagie. And not Norristown, Delco is now recognized because it started in what was called Hog Island. Hog Island was a part of Delco. So now the hoagie, the official birthplace of the hoagie, is recognized as Delco. And I got to find some hoagie shops in Delco. If anybody knows the best hoagie shop in Delco, let me know, because I got to try it out. If it's the birthplace of the hoagie, I got to find that out. One thing that I was remiss mentioning the last show, and I do want to mention it now. Sadness, losing Brian Wilson, one of the Beach Boys. The Beach Boys, all the brothers are gone. There's still a cousin, I think, that's still alive. But may Brian Wilson rest in peace. And people that didn't know the music of the Beach Boys should understand. I just so many great songs. I mean, there's so many great songs, so many great songs, so many great songs. So just understand how great Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys were, and may Brian Wilson rest in peace. I see somebody, Kevin, wants to know how he can call in. Not this show, but we'll do it on other shows. Just look, when you watch the show, look for the link to pop up. And it's been up there before, and it's the same link for the callers. You click on the link, and I'd be happy to have you on the show. Maybe, I'm not sure about Wednesday. Wednesday is our next show at 7:30, and then next Saturday, 8 o'clock. But two things before we leave you today. And pets are the greatest. They are the greatest. I have a dog with a little baby. I want you to look at this video and tell me pets are not great and kids don't. Look at that. I mean, isn't that the best? And the kid's not even scared.
Oh, that's so nice. Did you get a kiss?
Yeah, I know. It really is. It just, you see that. Okay. And there's a, next week, Brandywine Valley SPCA has a day. I think it's 2 days next week. Go to BrandywineValleySPCA.com. I guess you can find it, and they'll tell you what days. I think it's June 21 and 22. They have a special adoption days for pets. But I'm going to leave you today with this. It's amazing how pets get together with other pets. Look at this with this cat. I want you to look at this. That cat is a pet, as an adopted cat, and that's a pet parakeet. And is that amazing? Look at that. How special is that? That pets, two pets. The cat was adopted, and the bird and the cat became really friendly. Is that unbelievable? I mean, that's just truly unbelievable. Pets are the greatest. They really are the greatest. And they just, it's It was really, I mean, kind of when you look at it, you want to look at it again. It's just so nice. But thanks for joining me and joining us. And thanks to Stillwell Financial Advisors. Thanks to all our partners, our sponsors, Audi Westchester, Piazza Property Pros, Cut the Cord with Jason. And thanks to Tom Burgoyne, the best friend of the Phanatic, and John Brazer, the best friend of the Phanatic, the director of Fun and Games. Thank to both those guys. And thanks to you for being a part of the show. We'll see you again on Wednesday night at 7:30. Thanks and have a great weekend.